Hi and welcome back to FPL First, giving you the latest news, reviews and social views on everything English Premier League and Fantasy Premier League. In this episode we will take a look at the English Premier League Round 9 preview, and also I will talk a little bit about who could be your potential captain for this game week, plus I will show you my starting 11 and much more, all coming up. Firstly, I just want to apologise for my throat. It is sounding a little bit croaky. I am got a bit of a cold. I hope it doesn't ruin the video too much. But anyway, so if this is your first time on coming to FPL First, thanks very much for stopping by and checking out my content. If you're interested in the English Premier League and the Fantasy Premier League to go with that, then this is definitely the channel for you. So stick around, watch till the end of the video. If you like the content, then obviously it would be great if you think about subscribing for future content. If this is not your first time, thanks so much for coming back and joining me for this game week preview, and I hope that this week too can be beneficial to making your decisions for your Fantasy Premier League team. Alright, so let's take a look at this week's fixtures in the English Premier League, round 9. So beginning with Chelsea, who are hosting Man United at Stamford Bridge. This is what I believe to be the best game of the weekend. It's going to be very interesting to see if two key men turn up in this fixture, and that's obviously going to be Hazard or Pogba, but I will talk a little bit more about that later. Bournemouth are hosting Southampton at home, and you do expect Bournemouth to continue their form in the league. However, they did get humiliated by Burnley not too long ago, so that is a bit of a caution in terms of Bournemouth at home, but I do expect them to go out and beat Southampton comfortably. If you've considered Wilson or King as your strikers, or put Fraser in your midfield, you obviously will be hoping for Bournemouth to do well again this game week. Cardiff will be hosting Fulham in what I believe will be quite an even game, and then Man City will be hosting Burnley, in which I believe will be another game for Man City to get +4 goals. So if you have got Aguero in your team, this obviously will be a great game week potentially for you. Next, Newcastle will be hosting Brighton. Hopefully they'll be looking to get a win at home. They have been a little bit disappointing so far this season, so it would be interesting if they can bounce back with a win. However, Brighton do have striker Murray, who is in great form and consistently scoring for them, so it'll be interesting in that game. Next, Spurs have a pretty hard game away to West Ham in the London derby. I would have said it would have been an easy win for Spurs not that long ago, but actually West Ham picked up some really good form recently. Their midfield seems to be gelling really well, and Pellegrini seems to have found the right tactics for his players. So it'll be interesting to see how Spurs turn up to this game, as they have been a little bit off form recently. Wolves are going to be hosting Watford at home, which should prove to be an absolutely great game, considering Watford have had a great start to the season, but let's not count that Wolves haven't. They've had a great start to season 2. Plus, Wolves' season last season was absolutely based on a home defence record, so I expect them to take that form, and just think about the fact that they did draw 1-1 with Man City at home, so you can take all these factors in consideration and expect Wolves to do very well in this game. Lastly, the last fixture on Saturday, Liverpool are going to an away leg to Huddersfield, and I do expect Liverpool to win this game convincingly and with a clean sheet. So if you're thinking about potentially putting Robertson or Trent Alexander in your team, then this definitely should be a week you consider doing that. Moving on to the only game on Sunday, that would be Everton hosting Crystal Palace, and I do expect that Everton's big guns such as Sigurdsson, Bernard and Richarlison will take this game by the scruff of the neck and will be too much for the Crystal Palace defence. And Monday's fixture sees Arsenal hosting Leicester, in which will probably prove to be a much tighter game than most people expect, despite the fact Arsenal are 9 games unbeaten. But Leicester do have Vardy, who is a very good player against the top 6 teams, so it'll be a very interesting game. Alright, moving on to the game which I believe will be the best game of the weekend, and the reason I've selected Chelsea, who are hosting Man United at Stamford Bridge, is not just for footballing reasons, but it's for non-footballing reasons too. Mourinho is currently under pressure, and that's exactly the reason I chose this picture of him on the left of the slide. I just feel like Chelsea's in a really good kind of momentum right now. I know they drew 2 of the last 3 games, but before that they had won every single game. They've got Hazard, who in my opinion is the best player in Europe so far, so I just think that Chelsea are going to have too much for Man United. Having said that, Mourinho's current career at Man United is on the line, so it'll be interesting to see if he can get his players, and players especially like Pogba, to shine in this game to help him maintain his current job and obviously get Man United's season back on track. Now, if we look at the stats, both teams have won 2 of their last 5 against each other and drew only 1. So the stats show that there is more likely going to be a chance of one team winning rather than there being a draw. And considering Chelsea at home and the fact that they've won 1-1, drawn 1, I do believe Chelsea are favourites for this game and probably will get the win. However, it will be depending on these 2 players, and that's Hazard and Pogba. Hazard is obviously the key man for Chelsea. When he plays, Chelsea's game looks much better. He's been involved in 7 goals and I think 2 assists, so he is looking like a really good player so far this season. However, Pogba is a World Cup winner. He did look absolutely brilliant for France, so if he can bring that kind of form into this game and Mourinho can kind of get the tactics gelled well, Pogba on his day can beat anyone, and you know, we have to consider that if he plays well, then Man United have every opportunity to win this game. So it's going to be a really interesting game, not just for footballing reasons, but obviously off the pitch reasons too. So definitely keep an eye out on this game. Alright, moving on to a very important decision that every single Fantasy Premier League manager has to make every week, and that is who are you going to select as your captain. Now, I normally in my videos select 4 players as potential captain picks, and then the slide next I put my captain choice for this game week. So the player that I'm going to start with, which is a bit of a low budget striker, just gives you the alternative option, a bit of a differential if you want, and that is Callum Wilson for Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth have been scoring lots of goals. They're looking really good attacking wise, and considering they're playing Southampton at home this week, he is the player that, in my opinion, kind of stands out as a mid-price captain potentially. So you're probably thinking, why am I selecting this player? Well, just consider this statistic. In Bournemouth's all of their home games so far this season, Wilson has been involved in either a goal or an assist. So that obviously shows that he has got good potential to get a goal or assist this game week, especially considering the opposition in Southampton. Now, moving on to my second pick of this game week, and that lies with Tottenham Hotspur's striker Harry Kane. Now, the reason I have selected him is that he is a proven goal scorer and he has an excellent record against West Ham, who they are playing this week. Now, just consider this. Kane has scored 7 goals in their last 7 Premier League meetings, including 2 goals in the corresponding fixture last season against West Ham. And, you know, considering, you know, he hasn't had great form for England, but Harry Kane has started to find form in the English Premier League before the international break. So if you have him in your team, then he definitely could be a very good option for you. Now, moving on to a player which has slowly started to find form in the Premier League, maybe from a game week 4 onwards. He's been really influential for Arsenal, and that is the striker Alexander Lacazette. Now, if you have him in your team, then he could be a really good option for captain from now on. If you don't have him in your team, then maybe just look out for his performance against Leicester, as they are slightly harder oppositions compared to some of the previous oppositions recently. But considering he's been key recently for Arsenal, especially considering he's playing in that central attacking role for them, the position he wants to play in. And just consider that he's averaged 8.4 points per start since securing that role in the central striking role for Arsenal. So since he's been trusted by Emery, he has been returning consistently. So definitely consider him as a captain pick. And then moving on to my last potential captain pick, and that is Hazard. And to be honest, there's not much explanation needed. He is proven so far in the Fantasy Premier League. He's the top scorer. He's the most informed player, in my opinion, in the European leagues currently. So definitely consider him as a potential captain pick if he's in your team. Now, if you don't have Hazard in your team, then you really should, in my opinion, start considering getting Salah out and putting Hazard in. Because there are going to be some game weeks in the near future where if you don't have Hazard as your captain, you could lose out on some very, very big points. Now, moving on to my captain pick, and this week, the reason I'm selecting him is not necessarily because I think he's better than Hazard. The reason I'm picking him is because of the fixture that he's got, and that is Sergio Aguero with Man City facing Burnley at the Etihad Stadium. So far, Man City have been absolutely great at home, and they have been scoring for fun, and Sergio Aguero has been central to that. He is currently number 1 in terms of scorers in striking role in the Fantasy Premier League, and I believe he's probably got to be amongst the favourites to be selected as captaincy this week. So if you don't have Aguero in your team as your captain, then if he does really, really well, you potentially could be falling behind the rest of the pack. So that is my captain pick for this game week. Alright, so moving on to my team for this week, and starting in goal I have Hennessy for Crystal Palace. Now you're probably wondering, why do I have Hennessy in goal? Well, the reason is because I'm doing the kind of rotation system, and my other goalkeeper is Joe Hart, and considering Burnley are playing Man City away from home, there is no option for him being in goal because I think they're going to concede too many. So I am going with Hennessy. I hope that he gets a lot of shots. I don't know if he'll keep a clean sheet, but I am kind of hoping on the bonus points and the shot saves. In my defence, I'm going with Robertson and Alonso, who should be 2 players that you should have in your Fantasy Premier League team already. I have also got Doherty, who is becoming very popular recently, considering that he got the most points in the last game week. And then I've just included Mendy into my team. I took out Trippier. I did have a discussion with some of my viewers the other day in a live stream. I will put the link above with that live stream, and the debate was around taking Trippier out, who should I replace him with? Now, a lot of people suggested I should put Trent Alexander-Arnold in, but I'm going to go with Mendy, considering their fixture this game week, and the fact that the kind of cost of Mendy is roughly about the same as Trippier. So if I want to put Trippier back in, for example, next game week, that's no problem. And if I want to put Trent in, for example, when they've got an easy game, Liverpool that is, then that's no problem taking Mendy out. However, I think that Mendy could be in double figures this week. I think he's going to be, raring to go. He's missed a lot of games not too long ago, so I think that he's going to be crucial. Moving on to the midfield, I'm going to stick with Fraser, despite the fact he's got a bit of a knock. I think that he probably will play, and considering they're playing Southampton at home, I think he's got to be in my team. Hazard is in my team for obvious reasons. There's not much explanation needed for that. And Richarlison, I've got to just talk about Richarlison, and I've actually got him as one of my players to watch this game week. The reason that is because he is currently playing striker for Everton. Now, just consider that, as a Fantasy Premier League manager, if you get one of your midfielders put into the striker position, that is a dream come true. And Richarlison is currently doing that. So I'm praying that he has a great game week, and I hope that he gets some goals while he's playing in that striker role. And then moving on to my strikers, and Aguero I've already showed as my captain this game week, and then I've got Wilson for Bournemouth, and I've got Vardy for Leicester. Now, as an Arsenal supporter, I obviously don't want Leicester to win, but if Vardy gets a couple of goals and we still win, then happy days for me. And Wilson, because I think that Bournemouth are going to score quite a lot of goals this weekend. They may concede a lot, but I do think they're going to get the win against Southampton. So this is my selection for this game week. I hope it helps you in your selection. And if you agree or disagree with my selection, please let me know in the comments below what you would go with instead, and who you potentially would transfer in or out. Alright, so just going on to my player lookout for this game week. Mendy is my player lookout because they are playing Burnley at home. I do think that he's going to get starting again. He's back from his injury now and looking in full fitness. So for me, Mendy, considering he's only selected by 14% currently, he definitely could be a differential in your team if he has a really good week. Richarlison is, for the obvious reason that I just said, that he's now playing striker rather than midfield, so could be potentially getting you lots of points. Sigurdsson has had 2 amazing game weeks in game week 7 and 8. He had over 10 points in both of them. He is looking key now to Everton, and he seems that Sanchez has got the tactics right for Everton, so definitely a player to look out for. Robertson, for the obvious reasons that Liverpool have got a pretty easy fixture away to Huddersfield, so he could get clean sheets and potentially bonus points and assists, or potentially a goal. And lastly, Joshua King. Now, the reason I put him in is only because of the Fantasy Premier League's website recommending him, But between him or Wilson, the two of them will definitely be players you should watch out for, and potentially look out for Bournemouth's form, because that will obviously depend on whether or not these two players are playing well. So let's take a look at this game week's transfers in, and at top, Doherty is number 1, and that's obviously for the fact that he has got 49 overall points. Considering his cost of only 4.8 million, he is in great form, as you can see, with 9.7, so obviously he's over 400k transfer in. Next is Hazard, and the reason I think this is because I think people are losing faith with Salah, so the obvious replacement for Salah is Hazard currently. He is the most informed FPL player in that midfield. Next, Lacazette, Wilson, Sigurdsson. These are all players put in, I reckon, just before the fact that they are in form, and so it is obviously quite an obvious list this week. This is a good indication to the kind of trends currently going on in the FPL. So if you need any sort of ideas to see what other people are doing, obviously this is a great way to find out. Now, if we look at the transfers out for since game week 8, then we can see that number 1 on the list is Holobas. That is because I think he has picked up an injury. The next 4 players in Salah, Mane and Saha, I believe they are all currently risks for starting, so I think that's the reason that people aren't taking the risk. Plus, if we look at Salah, he has actually lost 0.2 in his price, so if you are looking to quickly cash out on him and maintain a good price, then this is definitely the time to think about doing it. Lastly, Lucas Moura, I think he's kind of starting to lose his place in the Tottenham team, considering Son and Lamela are back on form, and obviously Son's come back from the Asian Games, so I think that he's kind of lost, losing a bit of faith with the Tottenham manager. So this is the reason that I think that most of the transfers are out, and so obviously use these two tables as an indication as to kind of the trends, and maybe use it as a bit of advice to what you could potentially do with your transfers. Alright, so let's move on to my predictions for the EPL round 9. So I'm going to start with saying that Chelsea are going to probably just about beat Manchester United at home, so I'm going to give them a home win. Next, I've got Bournemouth to beat Southampton. I just think that Bournemouth will just have a little bit too much going forward. I do think it's going to be a close game, and I think there's going to be lots of goals, and I just think that Bournemouth will have enough. So I've got a home win there. Cardiff and Fulham I expect to be a draw, and then I expect Man City to have a comfortable home victory against Burnley. Next, I have Newcastle and Brighton to be a draw too, and then I have an away win for Spurs against West Ham. I do think it's going to be a very tight game, and it's going to be a very fascinating London derby, but I just think Spurs will have enough. And then I have Wolves and Watford to be a draw, because I feel like Wolves at home have got a very good defensive record, and I do think Watford are going to try and take the game to them. And then the last game of Saturday, I do expect Liverpool to destroy Huddersfield, and I expect them to keep a clean sheet in doing so. Moving on to Sunday's only fixture, I see Everton defeating Crystal Palace. I think that Bernard and Sigurdsson and Richarlison, they've just started to hit form, and I think they're just going to have too much firepower for the Crystal Palace defence. And lastly, I have Leicester to lose to Arsenal, and the reason that is because Arsenal has made the Emirates a bit of a fortress recently, and I just think that Leicester, they haven't quite found the form of late which they had in previous seasons, and I think that Arsenal under the new boss are looking much better, and with players like Lacazette and Aubameyang hitting form, I think that it's going to be a home win. Now, moving on to my bet for this week, and please remember, this is just my opinion and it is not guaranteed to happen, and only bet what you can. But my bet for this week is going to be Liverpool win and both teams to score equaling no. I then have Bournemouth to win at home and over 2.5 goals in that game. I have over 9 corners in the Man City game, and I have over 8 corners in the Bournemouth game. If you put a £5 bet on that on Bet365 as of today, you will receive £52.11. But once again, this is just my opinion and not guaranteed to happen, so only bet what you can afford. Alright, so that is the end of this game week preview. If you are still watching to the end, thanks very much for staying tuned till now. If you like the content, obviously, can you be massive help if you did a thumbs up for me and my channel. I would really appreciate that support. If you are new to this channel and this is your first time of watching a Fantasy Premier League Game Week 9 preview, then thanks very much for watching. And if you want to see more content like this in the near future, then you know what to do. There's subscribe buttons just below. And if you want to see when I upload, you can either click the alerts button on YouTube, or you can follow me on Twitter, whereby it allows you to know when I upload my videos. And obviously you can keep in touch in terms of any debates I do on Fantasy Premier League or English Premier League. Okay, so this has been my Game Week 9 prediction. I hope all the advice in this video has given you lots of ideas about what you potentially might do in terms of transfers, or who you might start in your team. Anyway, best of luck to you for your Fantasy Premier League game week. Also, best of luck if you put any bets on for this weekend. This has been FPL First, and my name is Joe. Thanks for watching.